What you are seeing now is not the truth. A bizarre homicide occurred in which the female victim was stabbed in the chest and buried in front of the bed, while the male victim died mysteriously without any injuries. A cultural relic related to an imperial green pendant has been stolen, and the revenge of a wealthy family in a bar fire 20 years ago. Is it the fate of love or the cycle of hatred? Is it a kind-hearted person who crosses people and oneself, or a wicked conspiracy of omnipotent capital? There is reasoning and suspense, but the truth is actually hidden behind the unknown. Chapter 1. Murder Case at Villa in the Early Morning. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In late autumn, in the early morning, a single-family villa is located outside the lakeside city. The villa was brightly lit, but by the misty lake, it felt unusually eerie. Occasionally, a few hoarse bird calls could be heard from the other end of the lake. Over there was a lush forest that looked lush during the day, and at night it was a dead black. The whole villa looks empty from outside. The floor-to-ceiling large glass windows and the bright living room are filled with only pale lights. People are all in a large room on the second floor of the villa. Bai Mubai is the captain of the Criminal Investigation Brigade in Hubin City. His height of 186 centimeters makes him feel a bit cramped in the basement, which is less than 2 meters. He instinctively bends slightly. The lighting in the basement is very dim, even if the portable power is turned on, the light still appears insufficient, and the white and antique bronze skin becomes even darker. Several people around are busy living in an orderly manner. The girl in front of Bai Mubai who was taking photos was Nia Xiaoyan, a usually quiet girl. As soon as she arrived at the crime scene, her sharp and shrewd eyes lit up, so everyone in the team called her Little Fox. Next to Nia Xiaoyan was Lin Xiaoga, a newly graduated intern from the University of Political Science and Law. He was naturally optimistic and had only been on the team for a few days, becoming everyone's happy fruit. However, when it comes to handling matters, he is meticulous and steady. In front of them, there was a corpse lying on all fours. The corpse was wearing a white nightgown, which was very clean. A cup fell not far from their left hand, and there was still a brown-black coffee mark left in the cup. This body belongs to Huamansang, the largest KTV owner in Hubin City. The alarm call was made by nanny Chen Huifang, and now she is talking to Deputy Squadron Leader Deng Yufei in a corner. Chen Huifang is in her 40s, of average height, but well-maintained, with skin that is as hydrated as an 18-year-old girl. Bai Mubai walked up to Deng Yufei, who saw the captain coming and moved his position to the side. Huifang, this is the white team. Can you explain the detailed situation to him again? Bai Mubai carefully studied the woman in front of him. Her face was pale, and her gaze was slightly dull, which was completely different from what she had seen from that angle just now. White team. Chen Huifang lifted her head again and saw that Bai Mubai was paying attention to her, so she quickly shifted her gaze to the other side. Last night, Mr. Hu didn't come home very late, so I packed up and went to bed early. In the early morning, there was a loud noise in his bedroom on the 3rd floor, which woke me up. It felt like something had been thrown on the ground and exploded again. I looked at the alarm clock next to the bedside table, and it was exactly 1:52. I was worried about something happening, so I put on my clothes and left the bedroom. My bedroom is on the 1st floor. At this point, Chen Huifang pointed to the top of her finger and took a deep breath before turning to see Bai Mubai. I saw that the living room was white and shiny, so I decided to turn off the lights. I walked up the stairs and found that all the lights in the hallway from the 3rd floor to the basement were on. I remember turning off all the lights before I went to bed, and it must have been Mr. Hua who came back to turn on the lights. So I walked from the 1st floor to the 3rd floor, ready to climb to the 3rd floor and then turn off the lights one by one. I didn't expect that I walked past Mr. Hua's bedroom and found that his door was not turned off and the lights were not turned off. So I looked inside and found that there was a woman lying upside down next to his big bed. Her body was blocked by the screen wind in the room, revealing a head with hair scattered all over her. On my head, I couldn't see who it was. I was so scared that I rushed from the 3rd floor to the -2nd floor in one breath. I didn't expect Mr. Hua to be lying here in his pajamas. Chen Huifang pointed to the place where Huamansang was lying. I originally wanted to run back to the bedroom on the 1st floor, as if I was being pulled here by something. At this point, Chen Huifang's already calm breathing became rapid again. Do you mean there is still a female corpse in Huamansang's room on the 3rd floor? Deng Yufei asked. At that time, I also saw it hastily and felt like a woman. Why don't I take you to take a look? Bai Mubai asked Deng Yufei and Lin Xiaoga to stay on the 2nd floor of the basement to conduct a more detailed investigation of the site, and followed Nia Xiaoyan up the stairs with Chen Huifang. Chen Huifang walked ahead, and Bai Mubai walked at the end. Suddenly, Nia Xiaoyan turned around, and Bai Mubai was reminiscing about what Chen Huifang had just said when he almost bumped into Nia Xiaoyan. The detective's 6th sense allowed him to stop his forward-leaning body in time. Nia Xiaoyan's mouth twitched, and Bai Mubai looked in the direction. Chen Huifang was walking on the carpet with only one slipper on and a woolen sock on the other foot. Chen Huifang was completely unaware of the reaction of the two people behind her and walked forward, barefoot on the carpet without making any sound. The 2nd basement is a wine cellar and a small conference room. Just now, Huamansang was lying in the conference room, looking at the position next to the wall. Next to it was a small safe, which was open, and you could see stacks of cash and several ledger-like items inside. The basement floor consists of a storage room and several entertainment rooms. As he walked past the basement floor, Bai Mubai noticed that the doors of several entertainment rooms were tightly closed, except for the storage room door which seemed to be slightly open, leaving a large gap. The lights on each floor are on, and the spiral staircase winds upwards to form a wonderful light strip. The 3 of them followed this light strip to the 3rd floor. Huamansang's bedroom is located at the innermost part, with the doors facing each other. Now both doors are open, except for a Su-embroidered screen not far from the door. It can be vaguely seen that a large bed is blocked by the screen. Bai Mubai took a few steps forward and saw the woman mentioned by Chen Huifang. The woman's hair is very long, but very straight, completely draped over her head, covering her entire face. The woman was also wearing a bathrobe, and the one on Huamansang's body should be a couple's style. However, now there is a knife inserted in the front of the bathrobe, leaving a silver handle exposed outside. A large area on the chest has been soaked in blood, and the bright red color is particularly dazzling. There should be few people coming to this bedroom, so Bai Mubai specifically reminded Nia Xiaoyan to pay attention to collecting clues such as footprints. Chen Huifang stopped at the bedroom door and stood outside, watching Bai Mubai and the others walk through the screen to the bedside. She was still trembling, and a faint sound of teeth colliding between her 2 colorless lips. Bai Mubai saw that Nia Xiaoyan had already taken several photos of the female corpse from different angles, so he squatted down and gently brushed away the scattered hair on the female corpse's face with his hands. That was a very delicate face, like God blending all the advantages of a beautiful woman's face together, exuding a natural elegance and grace. Her eyes were tightly closed, and the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, as if she was having a sweet dream. If it weren't for the silver knife and dazzling red on her chest just now, Bai Mubai wouldn't have associated this beautiful elf with death. At this moment, Chen Huifang outside the door also saw the face of the female corpse clearly. She let out a cry and couldn't help but rush in. Chapter 2. Jade Pendant of the Ming Dynasty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chen Huifang saw clearly that the female corpse lying on the ground was her daughter Guotiani. She felt like a drowning fish, unable to catch her breath. She opened her mouth wide and felt like she was about to squeeze out the last bit of oxygen from the air and suck it into her chest. Finally, there was a clear presence in her forehead, and her soul was possessed. She lay on the ground, carefully looking at the beautiful corpse. Her daughter had a light red heart-shaped mole behind her left earlobe. The fortune teller said at the time that her daughter's life was doomed before she turned 20. Just now, Bai Mubai lifted his daughter's hair and she suddenly saw that mole. But how could Guotiani appear here now when he was studying at a university in Yicheng, thousands of miles away? Bai Mubai looked at Chen Huifang. He didn't know why the woman rushed in like a madman, but he felt a cold chill seeping through her body. Chen Huifang, what are you doing? Nye Xiaoyan scolded on the side, get out quickly, don't damage the scene. Chen Huifang seemed to have heard nothing. She held her daughter's hands, which were warm and her heart was beating. At this moment, she felt like her daughter was standing in front of her, saying to herself, Mom, Tiani will definitely earn a lot of money when she grows up, and take you to the Maldives to play. Poor daughter, it's 2042 now, and even the Maldives from childhood has sunk to the bottom of the sea. Bai Mubai asked Nye Xiaoyan to take Chen Huifang to the next guest room to rest for a while, and then called Deng Yufei on the second basement floor, asking him and forensic expert Qin Siming to come up. Deng Yufei told him that 2 more people were sent by the bureau to support the work in the short term, and the survey work on the second basement floor is progressing rapidly. Okay, then hurry up and come up. After finishing speaking, he hung up the phone. Deng Yufei's phone signal on the second basement floor was not very good, intermittent, and full of electric current sounds. Today's police call was too hasty, and if he had brought his walkie-talkie ears, he wouldn't have suffered so much. Bai Mubai took advantage of this opportunity to walk around the bedroom. This room is very large, with a total area of 120 square meters. A 2.5-meter European-style bed is placed against the wall on the left side opposite the entrance, and a red and yellow Persian wool carpet of more than 10 square meters is spread under the bed. There are also many golden French palace classical furniture placed around it. On the left side of the room is a large floor-to-ceiling glass window, from which one can see the best view of the vast lake outside. On the right corner of the room, there is a hidden small door, which is difficult for ordinary people to recognize. Bai Mubai identified it from the irregular patterns on the gold wallpaper on the wall. He walked forward and was about to open the door when Deng Yufei and Qin Siming arrived. White team, what is the situation up here? What about Xiao Nye? Before anyone could enter the door, Deng Yufei's voice arrived. Bai Mubai knew that his right-hand man had always been straightforward. Xiao Nye accompanied Chen Huifang in the next room. Siming, this victim has been handed over to you. Bai Mubai waved his hand to Deng Yufei as he spoke, and Deng Yufei understood his meaning and walked over. Bai Mubai turned around and forcefully pushed the small door inside. The small door remained motionless, and Deng Yufei walked over to work with Bai Mubai. Unexpectedly, the small door remained motionless. The 2 people looked at each other. Deng Yufei seemed to have thought of something, and he lightly applied force to the right side with his hand. The door has opened. As the door slowly slid to the right, the lights inside also lit up one by one. Inside was actually a huge study, with bookshelves covered in 3 walls densely packed with many large books. Each row of shelves was also equipped with different colored ambient lights. The 2 of Bai Mubai were completely unable to connect such a huge sea of books with a KTV owner who was obsessed with lights, wine, paper, and money all day long. What surprised both of them even more was that on the wall on the right, all the original foreign classics were displayed, and Bai Mubai could only vaguely recognize several languages including English, French, Spanish, Arabic, and Korean. As for the specific books and what they talked about, Bai Mubai could only be helpless. Deng Yufei also praised the room full of books, truly echoing the ancient saying, in books, there is a golden house, and in books, there is a beauty as jade. As the 2 of them were amazed, Qin Siming noticed in the room outside and said, White team, Deng team, come out and take a look. Bai Mubai hurriedly turns around. Unexpectedly, the door of the study has been closed silently. He tries to push the door just as Deng Yufei opened the door. This time, the door has no response. Bai Mubai is about to roast to Deng Yufei behind him. A female voice comes from his head, please verify your fingerprint before opening the door. Bai Mubai only then discovered a small fingerprint scanning board on the right side of the door. He tried to press his index finger on it, and the scanning board quickly flashed a few red lights. The female voice above his head rang out again, please verify your fingerprint again. Bai Mubai's fingerprints are definitely not suitable. Deng Yufei behind him saw this scene and loudly said to Chen Huifang outside the door, Xiao Qin, come and push the door from left to right to see if it can be opened. Chen Huifang quickly pushed open the door from outside. Bai Mubai was envious of the one-way design of the door, so he invited Deng Yufei to try again later. Chen Huifang's discovery is in the hands of Guotiani. After entering the room, Chen Huifang noticed that Guotiani's left hand had been clenched into a fist. He was puzzled by the sharp pain that the silver knife should have caused when inserted into her body, but the girl did not use her hands to protect her chest. Thinking of this, Chen Huifang felt that the small knife had already pierced his chest, and the cold smell was approaching his heart inch by inch. At this moment, he seemed to merge with the girl on the ground, which was a very novel feeling that had never appeared in Chen Huifang's previous work experience. Chen Huifang looked at the girl, but there was a blur in front of him. The girl's body disappeared, and he only vaguely saw a blurry figure. No, it was two figures, one holding the other person horizontally. Soon, the two figures disappeared behind the door. After a while, Chen Huifang felt the outline of the girl's body appear again in front of him, gradually becoming clearer. So he instinctively shouted, White team, Deng team, come out and take a look. Guotiani's left hand was tightly held, and Bai Mu had to put in a lot of effort to break it open. She was holding an imperial green jade pendant, and the palm of her left hand had already sunk in due to the force of the grip. Bai Mubai held the pendant in his hand, and upon closer inspection, the jade pendant appeared small and delicate, resembling clear lake water that was crystal clear. The texture was delicate and there was no trace of impurities, and it exuded a strong glass luster, deep and charming. According to the sentence used by Bao Yu-Shi expert Hao Lao in his last special lecture at the Municipal Cultural Palace, the carving technique of this object is rough and robust, slightly trivial, and has obvious polishing characteristics in the Middle and Late Ming Dynasty. Chapter 3. Mysterious Male Footprints. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This jade is really a rare masterpiece. Deng Yufei watched from the side. At this moment, Nye Xiaoyan had already come from the next room. Chen Huifang was a bit tired, so Nye Xiaoyan asked her to lie on the sofa in the next room for a while and come over to support her teammates. Xiaoyan arrived just in time. Please cooperate with Xiao Qin to double-check the scene, especially not to miss any details, such as areas where fingerprints or footprints may be left. Bai Mubai handed the imperial green in his hand to Nye Xiaoyan, then stood up and said to Deng Yufei, Old Deng, let's go back to that small room and take a look. This time entering the small room, Bai Mubai gained experience. He moved a chair from the side and leaned against the door, so the door couldn't close. This time, Bai Mubai suddenly felt that the air in the room had improved a lot. There was a strange smell in the room just now, like a hint of latte coffee mixed with the fragrance of gardenia flowers. Now the door opened and it disappeared suddenly. He sniffed hard again, but there really wasn't that smell. The books on the shelf are neatly arranged, as if no one has been flipping through them for a long time, but the shelves are spotless, indicating that someone often cleans here. Bai Mubai noticed that one of the books in the 6th row on the right didn't seem to fit very well, so he showed a little bit. He pushed forward, but couldn't move it. There seemed to be something inside. He took the book out of the shelf, but there was nothing inside. He then realized that there was a metal bookmark inside the book, and the thin and long bookmark that should have been placed vertically now fell down, pressing against the inside of the shelf. The bookmark is made of brass, very thin, but very hard. It is engraved with 2 lines of characters using a sharp object. At night, I have a dream and suddenly return home. In the small pavilion window, I am dressing up. Looking at each other without words, there are only tears in 1,000 lines. This is a famous line from Su Dongpa's Jiang Chengzi. It tells the story of Su Dongpa, whose face is covered in dust and his temples are frosty. One day and night, he dreams of returning to his hometown. At the window of the cottage, he meets his deceased wife, who is dressing up and dressing up. The two of them remain silent and speechless, with tears falling down in 1,000 lines. When Su Dongpa wrote this sentence, his heart must have been in tears, but the person who engraved these 2 lines on this metal bookmark was no less heartbroken than him at the time. Bai Mubai, who had read too many of the suspect's handwriting, was deeply touched. The iron and silver hooks were filled with hatred, but there was also a kind of gentleness belonging to women between the lines in this character, which was not graceful, but had bones. Bai Mubai continued to flip through this book, but there was nothing else inside. He also took down several books beside him, but couldn't find any clues. Deng Yufei was also carefully looking at the bookshelves on the other 2 walls, as if he hadn't noticed anything. White team, there seems to be no more clues here. Deng Yufei looked at the neatly arranged countless books and felt worried. Since childhood, he didn't like reading books. Even if he had a little interest in these things when he was reading, he wouldn't be stuck in this criminal police team as a deputy platoon leader now. As I get older now, reading these books makes me even more headache-stricken. Bai Mubai naturally knew the small details in Deng Yufei's heart. He turned around and said, "Let's go. Anyway, there shouldn't be any other clues found here. Let's go back to the team first." Nie Xiaoyan saw that Bai Mubai, who had walked out of the small room, had an extra book in his hand. She couldn't help but glance at it again. Unexpectedly, she could see the origin of the book at a glance. Yi Zhenzhong's Ju Shou was a classic social detective novel from over 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago, around 2020, it was unexpected that Nie Xiaoyan, a young girl, was interested in books from such an ancient era. Bai Mubai was both surprised and ashamed, as she recognized a book that she didn't even know a single word from afar. Seeing Bai Mubai frown, Nie Xiaoyan thought it was her sudden remark that interrupted the captain's thoughts, so she quickly spat out her tongue. Unexpectedly, Chen Huifang beside her saw this scene, and through the mask, the laughter of the little forensic expert was particularly loud. Of course, Nie Xiaoyan knew that Chen Huifang was laughing at her and gave him a glare. Unexpectedly, Chen Huifang laughed even louder. Chen Huifang's laughter suddenly made Bai Mubai happy. Lin Xiaoga and the 2 colleagues who just arrived on the 2nd floor are still busy. The situation here is relatively simple. The 3 of them quickly completed the preliminary clue collection, but there is one thing that Lin Xiaoga couldn't understand. Among the shoe prints found on the scene, there is a pair of 43 size male sports shoe prints. Strangely, these 43 size shoe prints only have traces of entering, but no traces of leaving. Huomansang is wearing 41 size shoes, and they are also a pair of leather shoes. Is there anyone else in the whole room who hasn't left after entering? Lin Xiaoga heard footsteps coming from outside the door and looked up to see Bai Mubai walking in. He called out, "White team." Bai Mubai turned his head and saw Lin Xiaoga. "Xiao Lin, how's the progress? Are there any new discoveries?" Lin Xiaoga stood up and approached Bai Mubai, holding up the notebook in his hand a bit. "White team, there are a few discoveries. First of all, the cash in the open safe is not missing from the other party's situation. In addition, the basic real estate registration certificate and 2 daily account books of Yuhu Palace inside are all intact. It is preliminarily determined that the motive for robbery and murder is ruled out, and the suspect's purpose is to cause Huomansang's death. Secondly, there is no trace of injuries caused by external attacks on Huomansang's body, which forms another doubt. Therefore, it is still uncertain whether he committed suicide or homicide. Of course, Chen Huifang has just collected blood samples and other related samples. Finally, The most puzzling thing is that we found a very strange set of shoe prints on site, and this set of shoe prints shows that the owner of the shoes only came in but did not go out. Normally, this room is on the second basement floor, with no windows or other exits. How could that person disappear out of thin air? Bai Mubai listened to Lin Xiaoga's words and nodded from time to time. After Lin Xiaoga finished speaking, he said, "There is still a female corpse in the bedroom on the third floor. The preliminary survey results show that the time difference between the two deaths is not far, and who died first will be the key to solving the mystery. You can also go up and take a look later. In addition, you can take some time to walk around other parts of this building, and I believe there are still some clues that have not yet surfaced." Bai Mubai's words reminded Lin Xiaoga that just now Nia Xiaoyan and Deng Yufei went upstairs, and he wanted to follow them. Now that the White Team's imperial edict was in place, he was already overjoyed. "Yes, sir." Lin Xiaoga respectfully bowed. Bai Mubai waved his hand and said, "You kid, hurry up and carry out your work, don't be poor." After finishing speaking, he turned around and prepared to go upstairs. Just now, when he went upstairs, he saw that the door of a room on the basement floor was not tightly closed, and there was a crack in the door that opened outward. Now he wanted to go and see if he had found anything else. Chapter 4. Past events from 20 years ago. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chen Huifang, who was half lying on the sofa in the guest room on the third floor, was now in a tumultuous mood. She had never imagined seeing her daughter in this situation. Although Guotiani is not her own biological daughter, but just an adopted daughter, this child carries a mixed memory of Chen Huifang, although she has never mentioned it to anyone else. That was a period of time 20 years ago. At that time, Chen Huifang worked at a foreign trade company in Hubei City, and the general manager, Guo Jinlin, was a handsome young man. This handsome young man is only in his 30s, but he has already owned his own house, car, wife, and company in Hubei City based on his keen sense of business. At that time, the company's annual revenue had reached nearly 80 million yuan, which impressed Chen Huifang, who had just graduated from college and got married and had children less than 2 years ago. Although he has already married and had children, he still does not have his own small nest in this city. So every time she sees Guo Jinlin walking in and out of the office across from her, Chen Huifang feels a strange feeling, both jealous and admiring. However, in the end, Chen Huifang comforts herself by saying, "Follow Mr. Jinlin, sooner or later I will also get what I want." Chen Huifang has also met Guo Jinlin's wife. This woman named Guan Shui has come to the company twice. One time, Guo Jinlin asked her to bring a document from home, and the other time, Guo Jinlin had just accompanied her to the hospital for prenatal checkups. Her reaction was too strong on the way, so Guo Jinlin took her to the company to rest. Chen Huifang's impression of seeing Guan Shui for the second time was completely different from the first time. The first time I saw a snowy instrument, it was shrewd and capable. This university art teacher had a natural reserve, and even when she walked by wearing a Chanel windbreaker, the air currents carried a sense of pride. From the side, Chen Huifang saw that this beautiful woman was indeed incredibly beautiful and could not be offended. But the second appearance of the snowball was weak, like a kitten nestled in Guo Jinlin's arms, with white lips. Even though Guo Jinlin held her in his arms, she trembled slightly, which made Chen Huifang a little gloating. In fact, she knew that such emotions were wrong, even evil, but such feelings still covered the sky and sun in her heart for a long time. As an assistant, every time Chen Huifang accompanied Guo Jinlin out on business, she couldn't help but recall the second time she saw Guan Shui and pulled her lips upwards. Once, Guo Jinlin noticed something unusual about Chen Huifang, and Chen Huifang quickly found a topic to avoid. Chen Huifang was not good at lying in front of Guo Jinlin, so she always made Guo Jinlin laugh out loud, and Chen Huifang felt that it was her happiest moment. Upon returning home, Chen Huifang inexplicably felt a sense of oppression and loneliness, and only when she was by her son's side could she be happy. My son, who is over 2 years old, can now run around the ground, which is the most tiring time, so my husband took my mother-in-law to the city. My husband Chen Huifang works as a chef in the back of a bar. He goes to work at noon every day and can only come back in the early morning of the next day, so having his mother-in-law give him a hand can save a lot of trouble. Chen Huifang, who graduated from high school with a simple and honest demeanor, can be called dull. He has no common topic with Chen Huifang, who has just graduated from college and still has a green fantasy about life. The days at home seem particularly long and boring. But even so, this mundane life was completely lost one day. That night, Chen Huifang went to bed before 10 o'clock as usual, and her son had a mother-in-law with him, so he didn't have to worry about it. But in the early morning, Chen Huifang's phone rang, and she habitually touched her side. The blanket next to her was still cold, and Chen Huifang hadn't even finished work yet. Chen Huifang, who thought her phone alarm had gone off, swiped the screen of her phone to turn off the alarm. Unexpectedly, her phone answered, and a well-spoken male voice came from the receiver. "Hello, are you a family member of Qing National Day?" This kind of question made Chen Huifang's whole body tremble with excitement. She immediately sat up from the bed and said, "Are you?" After watching many police dramas, she felt that this phone call was a bit unusual. "Please go to Womankang Bar at 38, Zhengyang Road to confirm Chen Huifang's identity." The male voice on the other end of the phone couldn't hear any emotion. Chen Huifang looked at her phone and found that it was almost 5 o'clock in the morning. Chen Huifang had not yet returned home. This should not be a prank. At this time in the past, Chen Huifang had already made a loud grunt by his side, but today he hasn't. The ride-hailing service was parked directly over 100 meters away from the Womankang Bar. Police had already set up a cordon ahead, with several police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances occupying most of the already spacious street. After getting off the car, Chen Huifang smelled a strong smell of burning in the air, and the flashing police lights made her feel dizzy. An ambulance rushing past her almost hit her in a daze, but this also made Chen Huifang more conscious. She walked straight to the side of a police officer who was maintaining order. "I am Chen Huifang's wife. I received a call to confirm my identity here. Did my husband have an accident?" The police looked at Chen Huifang and then turned to a female police officer inside the cordon, shouting, "Han Fei, there is a family member of the deceased here to confirm their identity." The family of the deceased, upon hearing these words, Chen Huifang's head exploded instantly, her body shook a few times, and then she lost consciousness. Chen Huifang woke up from lying in the arms of the policewoman named Han Fei. When she opened her eyes, Han Fei pinched one of her fingers against Chen Huifang's person and watched her wake up before moving her hand away. "My husband is gone. Why is he gone?" Chen Huifang felt very weak, but Han Fei sounded extremely harsh. Han Fei can understand Chen Huifang's feelings at this moment, and often such a bolt from the blue can cause a wildfire. She patiently told Chen Huifang about the fire that occurred 2 hours ago at the Womankang Bar. The fire started from the back kitchen of the bar, and the specific reason is unknown. However, the fire spread quickly and quickly spread from the back kitchen to the private room, and then from the private room to the stage hall with the highest number of people. But the biggest casualties were not in the hall with the highest number of people gathered, but in more than 10 private rooms not far from the kitchen. When the fire broke out, the people in the private rooms had no idea about the outside situation. The surging fire and smoke quickly filled these private rooms, and no one inside ran out alive. At that time, Chen Huifang in the kitchen was the first to bear the brunt, and along with 2 other chefs, they became the first group of victims to die. Looking back, Chen Huifang painfully closed her eyes. Even now, she can still occasionally think of Chen Huifang because his death has completely pushed her young self into a dark abyss. Chapter 5. The Disappearing Children in the Chamber of Secrets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. People need to have the ability to turn over articles, not to give up and only know how to paint the ground as a prison. Chen Huifang's father taught her this way from a very young age. My father was the principal of a rural primary school and a high-achieving graduate from the provincial normal university. However, by chance, he arrived in this remote countryside and stayed there for decades until he suddenly fainted and passed away on the podium the year before yesterday. The commendation certificate sent by the County Education Bureau can also be considered as a glorious pause in the father's life. Chen Huifang's personality inherits more of her mother's factors, being strong and stubborn, but her gentle appearance perfectly conceals her tough inner self. Father's words are always like a gentle breeze blowing over the frozen river in the third winter, without any ripples. So at this moment, Chen Huifang would find her father shaking his head, sighing, and then looking out the window in disappointment. At this moment, Bai Mubai had reached the basement floor of the villa, and a monk's scream was hanging at the entrance of the passage. The trembling and colorful sky and river, and the endless road stretching to the sky, a skeleton-like person with both hands on their ears, screamed loudly at the top of their lungs, like a person's nightmare. The first time Bai Mubai saw this painting in his high school art class, he was shocked by the painter's bold use of colors and lines, especially the blood-red background that reminded Bai Mubai of fire, the raging flames. The art teacher at the time told him that the blood-orange sky was not purely expressionism filled with panic emotions, but a realistic record of the global chain of anomalies brought about by the massive eruption of the Krakatoa volcano in 1883. Everything in the world is interconnected, the bridge connecting the past and present is thinking, and the bridge connecting the present and future is creation. Now, Huamansang may have hung this painting in a prominent position on the basement floor to vent his emotions at that time. An element in the painting accurately hit his mood. Bai Mubai does not believe that Huamansang's mentality as a nouveau riche will have the patience to conform to vulgarity. What was Huamansang thinking at that time? Bai Mubai continued to walk inside. The storage room is located at the right end of the basement floor, and compared to the other rooms, its door is the largest, facing open, so the gap exposed by the slightly concealed door can be seen far away. A cold and damp smell overflowed from the storage room, which should not belong to the basement. Bai Mubai pushed open the door and found out that the source of moisture was the window opposite the storage room door. No, it should be a window opening, because there were no windows above. The window opening, although not large, was enough for a man of medium build to pass through. The window is 3 meters above the ground, and even a tall man like Bai Mubai needs to jump up hard to reach the lower edge of the window opening. There was already sunlight shining through the window opening, and from the appearance of the shadow, Bai Mubai knew that there must be a layer of blinds and fences covering the window opening. There is a metal movable ladder in the corner of the storage room, and Bai Mubai went to move it over. The steps of the activity ladder are very clean, I'm not sure if it's due to the strong wind here or frequent use. Bai Mubai stepped on the stairs and looked out. The window opening was tilted inward, with a layer of floor paint on the inside, so it was clean and smooth. There was indeed a green shutter fence at the end of the window opening. Looking out from the gap in the fence, several waterbirds on the lake surface in the distance happened to pass by. However, now the sunlight came in from the opposite side, making people's eyes a bit hard to open. Bai Mubai lowered his head and looked at his watch on his wrist. It was already 7:30 in the morning, and since the police arrived here, Bai Mubai and his team have been staying in this villa for almost 4 hours. There are many things scattered in the storage room. Each wall is nailed with several layers of shelves, which are filled with bottles and jars, including wine bottles, spice bottles, paint cans, and some things of unknown sizes. There were more things pushed under the shelf, but each one was packed in boxes and stacked together. At this moment, Bai Mubai felt like he had entered a treasure cave in Alibaba, with each box containing a wealth of gold and silver that could rival the country. The boxes were all unlocked, and Bai Mubai opened them one by one. Inside were filled with toys, from building blocks to toy cars, from plush toys to drones, all arranged in different categories. Dozens of boxes are filled with toys. Who would have thought that a KTV owner in his 50s would have children's toys in their storage room the most? Bai Mubai found it unbelievable, and even began to depict in his mind a scene of Huamansang secretly sneaking into the storage room to play with these toys. However, such a scene was not contradictory. Who said that middle-aged people cannot play with toys, and who hasn't had their own childhood yet? Bai Mubai thought this way and felt it was quite reasonable. Just at this moment, he suddenly recalled a detail that he had overlooked when he saw the shutter fence just now. On the inside of the window opening, he did not look at the fixing device of the shutter fence. He stepped up the stairs again and poked his head into the window opening, only to realize that the fixing device of the shutter fence was abnormally installed outside the window. This installation method seemed similar before, Bai Mubai remembered, and it was similar to one of the key plot points of a baby theft case in Hubin City 12 years ago. 12 years ago, at that time, the captain of the Hubin City Criminal Investigation Brigade was still Ma Xiangtao, the master of Bai Mubai. Bai Mubai was the captain of the first squadron, and in the bureau, Bai Mubai was Ma Xiangtao's successor. After all, at that time, Ma Xiangtao was approaching retirement age, and it was natural for Bai Mubai, as his legitimate disciple, to receive special attention. It was early in the summer morning, and the time when the alarm call was called was similar to this case. It looked like around 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was a couple who reported to the police. On the phone, the couple panicked and told the answering officer that their less than 1-year-old child had been lost. Bai Mubai and several colleagues followed their master Ma Xiangtao to the scene. It was a bungalow in the suburbs. At that time, the couple lived in the master bedroom, which had a study. After having a child, they moved the crib inside. That day, the hostess woke up suddenly and wanted to see how the child in the neighboring study was sleeping. Unexpectedly, the crib was empty, and even the thin blanket covering the child's body was missing. There was a window in the study, and outside it was a small alley. However, that night the window was tightly closed and the curtains were tightly drawn, without any signs of human damage. The two owners still vividly remember that before Bai Mubai and his companions arrived, the doors outside were all locked, and they didn't open them until the police arrived at the door. So everyone found it very tricky. When did the suspect enter the room and how did he quietly transfer the child out under the eyes of his parents? This is like a replica of the classic Chamber of Secrets murder. Chapter 6. Why he wants to kill people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Captain Ma Xiangtao walked around the study and stopped under the buzzing ventilation fan. He asked the couple a meaningful question: has anyone in your family recently come to fix anything? The male protagonist looked at the female protagonist, and the female protagonist looked at the male protagonist. It seemed that both of them also remembered something, but they were not sure how to explain it to the police in front of them. Finally, the hostess spoke up, which also proves her higher status at home. She said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Last week there was a problem with the ventilation fan in the study, so I found a phone number online for repairing appliances. And soon they came to the door for repairs. Yes, there was a man and a woman here, as if they were still married. Actually, I was quite strange at the time. Shouldn't this physical labor be done by men? But to be honest, the two of them were doing very well, especially the woman. She saw me warming the baby's milk in the kitchen and even took the initiative to help me watch the child play with them. Later, they left in less than an hour. Besides this, the hostess can't think of anyone else who has been at home recently." The later case was solved, and it was indeed this couple who committed the crime. The couple has been in the city for more than a year, and men have no fertility. They came to the city not so much to earn money to support their family, but to find a target child to take back to their hometown to continue the incense. They just arrived at the home that day. The woman immediately fell in love with the lively children on the crib, so she paid extra attention. After walking around the family for a few days, the couple decided to take action, and the location of the action was where the ventilation fan was installed. The two of them found a bamboo ladder in the alley, and the man climbed up and dismantled the ventilation fan he had installed a few days ago. He then entered the study where the baby slept through that hole. The door leading to the master bedroom was tightly closed that day, so the movement inside the study was not noticed, fearing that the child would make a noise during the process. The couple even studied the scenes from the movie and prepared a handkerchief soaked in ether. Then the man who entered the study handed the unconscious child who had been anesthetized with ether through the ventilation fan hole to the woman standing on the ladder. Finally, he climbed out of the hole himself, and the ventilation fan was fixed again from the outside. The whole scene seemed like no one had ever come in, and the child disappeared out of thin air. Master Ma Xiangtao retired shortly after the closure of this case, marking a successful end to his career as a criminal police officer. At that time, he particularly reminded Bai Mubai that among all criminal cases, the Chamber of Secrets case is the most difficult to crack because it goes against common sense. However, even the most perfect Chamber of Secrets murder case, according to Raka's law, will eventually leave a loophole. Whenever two objects come into contact, there will be a phenomenon of transfer, which will take away some things and leave behind some things. This is the sentence that Bai Mubai remembers the most clearly. So now seeing the scene in the storage room, Bai Mubai immediately remembered the case at that time and also remembered his master. Since the retirement of his master, due to his busy work schedule, Bai Mubai rarely gets together with Ma Xiangtao. The relationship between the father and son, which was previously close, has gradually become estranged. However, during holidays and festivals, Bai Mubai still carries large and small gifts to visit his master. After retiring, Ma Xiangtao lived alone in an old residential area in the east of Hubei City. His wife passed away 3 years before his retirement, and his son settled there after finishing university in New Zealand. Therefore, Ma Xiangtao became a lonely family. Until a few years ago, Ma Xiangtao's son sent his own son back to China. Ma Xiangtao's grandson's name is Ma Hongwei, and his English name is Diego. It is said that because his father is a fan of football king Maradona, he gave his son such a foreign name. Ma Xiangtao's son hopes that Diego can find a serious job in China and use Ma Xiangtao's many years of network to enter a formal organization, which is better than mixing with a group of white and black kids abroad. At that time, Ma Xiangtao found Bai Mubai and planned to have Diego follow him to work in the criminal police team. At the worst, he would first go to a police station as a temporary worker to familiarize himself with the situation. The master's requirements were not excessive, and Diego himself brought the halo of studying abroad and returning to his home country. Diego's work was soon implemented, but this kid had been exposed to the liberal ideology abroad for too long and was not accustomed to the rigid and conventional process in China. Therefore, the matter of finally entering the workforce was not resolved. However, in the end, Bai Mubai still contacted a good friend of his college years who opened a large security company in Lakeside City and has developed more than 20 branches nationwide. Unexpectedly, Diego went there and suddenly became enlightened. In just over 2 years, he became successful. The general manager of one of the branches was appointed. But later on, Diego had some trouble with the company over there, which was quite disturbing. Bai Mubai's thoughts were interrupted by a female voice. It was Nya Xiaoyan. "White team, did you hide here before? Deng team asked me to ask you when you plan to return to the team." Bai Mubai suddenly remembered that he had asked Deng Yufei and himself to return to the team first. He suddenly remembered to go to the second floor to check the situation and forgot about it. "Xiaoyan, find someone to go out with you and buy some breakfast. It's almost noon now." Bai Mubai deliberately said the time very late because he was interrupted by Nya Xiaoyan, and his stomach really felt hungry. "Okay, I wonder what kind of food Captain Bai wants to have." "Anything is fine, everyone just needs to fill their stomachs." In fact, Bai Mubai still hopes to stay here for a little longer, maybe he can discover more first-hand clues. After Nie Xiaoyan left, Bai Mubai circled around the storage room twice again. He always felt that the storage room was not an independent entity, which must have some connection with this case. Perhaps the suspect escaped from the window of this room after committing the crime. Thinking of this, Bai Mubai suddenly felt as if he had figured out the context of this case. The suspect may have been premeditated for a long time, but they also found a secret passage to enter the villa through prolonged inspection. He entered the room through the window opening in the storage room, but of course, he doesn't know the exact time he entered. Perhaps he had been lurking here for a while and successfully avoided Chen Huifang's routine inspections every night, waiting until Huamansang returned home late at night. Yes, Huamansang, who was taking the beautiful woman home, would not know that there was a pair of eyes staring at him in his own storage room. He proudly took the beautiful woman back to his third-floor bedroom. Then, the suspect took action and first killed Huamansang. He found that the beautiful woman on the bed was ready to resist, so he picked up the silver knife next to her and killed her. Finally, he transferred Huamansang's body to the basement's second floor, and then returned to escape from the storage room on the first floor. Bai Mubai felt that this reasoning seemed to work, but it seemed like something was missing. Yes, the motive, at least the motive was missing. From the current situation, it seems that the suspect's deliberate thinking is not for the sake of wealth. Chapter 7. Whose cigarette but will this be? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nie Xiaoyan has gone to pack the breakfast for everyone. There are steamed stuffed buns, deep-fried dough sticks, pancakes, soybean milk and milk. They are placed on a marble table in the huge living room on the first floor. A table is full, and it feels like 10 people. Quickly, several people in the villa gathered together, and the on-site investigation work was nearing completion, so everyone was very relaxed. Bai Mubai saw that Chen Huifang didn't come down, so he asked Nie Xiaoyan to bring her 2 steamed buns and a cup of soybean milk upstairs. Taking advantage of this gap, Bai Mubai would like to hear everyone's opinions on this case. I think Guo Tianyi's death can basically be classified as murder, because with such a small silver knife, I don't believe anyone has the courage to insert it into their own body. The pain has already exceeded the limit that humans can bear. Deng Yufei saw that everyone didn't speak up, and as the team leader, it was necessary to first agree. As for Huamansang, I think it is possible for him to commit suicide or murder before clarifying his relationship with Guo Tianyi. However, his death is indeed very strange, with a hint of happiness in his calm, as if he had already seen God at that moment. Deng Yufei's last sentence made everyone laugh. Deng team, you are the best poet in the police industry, Lin Xiaoga put on a very admiring look, feeling not satisfied and added, our police flower. Deng Yufei also smiled. The old man was talking about being a teenager, and he didn't even know when he had filled his stomach with ink. Jorge, tell me about your discovery, Bai Mubai said, wanting to quickly learn more useful clues before returning to the team, so that the subsequent case analysis would be more valuable. White team, just now when I was inspecting a women's makeup bag at the bedside of the third-floor bedroom, I found this small electric shock device. Lin Xiaoga turned around and took out a bag from a survey box next to him, which contained something in the shape of lipstick. He handed the bag to Deng Yufei, who looked at it and then handed it to Bai Mubai. This is a delicate small electric shock absorber, similar to the wolf protector carried by ordinary girls, but its current intensity can reach 150 milliamperes, far exceeding the safety range of ordinary electric shock absorbers and the limit that the human body can withstand. That is to say, this is no longer for simple self-defense purposes, but specially customized to achieve a fatal impact. Can you find the manufacturer's information? Bai Mubai regretted this sentence because he couldn't see any information about the manufacturer or brand on this lipstick electric shock device. No, currently no information can be found on this electric shock device, but I have found 2 sandable marks on the side of this tube, so it cannot be ruled out that the suspect is intentionally destroying valid information. This clue is very important, Jorge. you can follow along. The electric shock absorber belongs to non-lethal police equipment, and any store in the city that is qualified to sell police equipment or police equipment can go and investigate it. Of course, we cannot prevent the possibility that this thing may have entered through the internet or other illegal channels. After speaking to Lin Xiaoge, Bai Mubai turned to Chen Huifang and said, "Huifang, where did you go in the inspection of the two corpses?" From the information collected from external sources, it appears that the two deceased individuals were killed at a similar time, and a comprehensive evaluation is needed based on the samples collected from other corpses. On the surface, the possibility of homicide by the female deceased is relatively high, consistent with the analysis by Deng's team just now. Chen Huifang paused and used his hand to support the glasses on the nose bridge. Currently, no external injuries have been found on the male deceased, and blood and hair samples have been taken from him. Additionally, the footprints and other evidence at the scene have been investigated and collected. Have you visited any other rooms in this villa, such as the storage room? Although Chen Huifang continued, Bai Mubai scanned everyone with his eyes before returning to Deng Yufei. Before it's too late, after the investigation of the two main sites at present, we will carry out a dragnet search of other locations of the villa again, hoping to find more favorable clues. Deng Yufei is chewing a deep fried dough sticks in his mouth, and Bai Mubai's eyes make him swallow the things in his mouth. After that, he quickly drinks a mouthful of soybean milk. Okay, make sure the investigation is detailed and accurate, and collect as much evidence as possible. After the body is surveyed at noon, seal it properly and we can withdraw from the team. In the afternoon, we will have a case analysis meeting. Do we need to temporarily keep the scene, white team? Chen Huifang hastily asked a question, indicating that he was not very satisfied with the current progress of the survey results. Of course, Bai Mubai knew what Chen Huifang wanted to express. Based on the progress of your work, try to end the on-site inspection as soon as possible without affecting the normal lives of others. In fact, Huamansang did not have any other family members and had been divorced from his wife for many years. Later, both his wife and children immigrated to Canada. Only Chen Huifang is left. If the scene needs to be temporarily preserved, her accommodation will still need to be arranged temporarily. I'll leave first, you can lead everyone to work harder. Let's meet at 2:30 in the afternoon, Bai Mubai said to Deng Yufei. The sun was very bright this morning, which is a rare event for the lakeside city in late autumn. Bai Mubai lowered the car window on this side of the cab, and the wind by the lake, mixed with the warmth of sunlight, sneaked in, feeling very comfortable. Not far from Huamansang's villa, there is a two-lane Huanhu road. Turn left and you will soon reach the fourth ring road of Hubin City. Turn right and you will take a big detour, passing through the 500-acre forest park across from the lake before returning to the ramp of the fourth ring road of Hubin City. This time, Bai Mubai decided to walk from the right, not just to enjoy the rare sunshine and gentle breeze, but to take this opportunity to sort out the current case's thinking. Along the Huanhu Road, there are villas all around. In order to maintain the elegance and charm of these over 1,000 villas, the developers put in a lot of effort to turn the natural lake, which was less than 200 acres, into an artificial lake of 1,200 acres. This has attracted many high-ranking officials and people from all walks of life to give up their wallets. It is said that a casual villa in this area is worth billions of yuan. Bai Mubai parked his car on a small road in the forest park. Today is not a weekend, and there are very few people coming here. The constant chirping of birds around him makes Bai Mubai very comfortable. Having been busy for several hours, he felt a bit tired. He leaned his head against the seat and looked at the villas across from the lake, as if he could vaguely recognize the location of Huamansang's villa. A few waterbirds flew from across the lake, chasing and playing in the air, and in the blink of an eye, they flew to the roadside around the lake. A white egret collected its wings and stood on the blue stone railing around the lake, combing its feathers with its beak. Its companions quickly flew back, gathered around it, and a few birds fluttered together again. Their happy and joyful shadows could be seen on the railing, under the railing, on the water surface, and on the road. Soon, they flew away flirtatiously. But just now, the pile of cigarette butts under the blue stone railing they were playing with caught Bai Mubai's attention. Chapter 8. Little Boys and Girls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There are dozens of cigarette butts in total, and 2 crumpled cigarette boxes are thrown nearby. It seems that smokers have been staying here for quite a long time. Bai Mubai gently got off the car, as if afraid that his noise would scare away those cigarette butts. He stretched lazily and took a deep breath of the misty air by the lake. This faint smell made his mind much more ethereal. Walking to the blue stone railing, Bai Mubai squatted down and took out a pair of small tweezers and 2 plastic bags from his inner pocket of clothes. After working as a criminal police officer for so many years, Bai Mubai has become accustomed to carrying some simple tools with him to prevent any clues to the case from appearing at any time. He picked up one of the cigarette butts with small tweezers and carefully looked at it. The cigarette butt was still relatively new, just like it had just been smoked in the past 2 days. Although it was soaked in some water vapor from the lake at night, it was still evident that the smoker was very patient and slowly smoked the cigarette to the end. It was almost until the golden filter nozzle extinguished it. The golden filter nozzle is very thin, with a red flame decorated 95 printed on it. The sky is only 9 layers high, and the earth is not far beyond the 5 extremes. This is the 9-5 supreme branches of Nanjing. Bai Mubai put the cigarette butt into a plastic bag and used tweezers to poke it twice in the pile. The bottom few cigarette butts should have been thrown here for a longer time. He picked a relatively good one from inside and put it into the bag. Then, Bai Mubai took out another plastic bag and put the 2 crumpled cigarette boxes on the side inside. Bai Mubai felt that this place must be related to the murder case that just occurred. To be precise, it should be related to this pile of cigarette butts and the suspect of the murder case. This was an old detective's intuition, and he also found evidence. Because just as he was using tweezers to hold the cigarette butt, he found 3 nearby pits. The 3 pits were not big, but the marks were very new, probably fixed here like a camera tripod or a high-power telescope tripod. He stood up straight and looked at a sculpture tower across the lake. The 8-story sculpture tower used the ancient Egyptian obelisk design, with pointed square columns gradually shrinking from bottom to top. The brass top of the tower appeared particularly brilliant under the sunlight today. This tower stands out among the surrounding villas with only 3 floors. It is said that at that time, the developer painstakingly built this tower to balance the feng shui around it. Overly large water bodies and dark and dense forests can make people uncomfortable. Therefore, they adopted the opinion of a Japanese architect and added a black obelisk design to the original villa blueprint. The obelisk is a symbol of power, and justice, while black granite can gather energy and dissolve evil spirits. Sure enough, the design of this obelisk became the finishing touch, not only winning awards in several international design competitions, but also allowing the developer to make a fortune in the end. The first villa next to this tower is Huimansang's, and with the positioning of the obelisk, even from such a distance, one can quickly find it. Standing in this position for several consecutive days, observing with a high-power telescope or taking photos with a camera should not be the responsibility of a photography enthusiast. The person staying here must have a special task to track things ahead for a long time in order to understand the trajectory of the tracked person. Bai Mubai increasingly believed in his judgment, and even felt that he was one step closer to solving the case. The DNA data on the 2 cigarette butts will definitely bring a breakthrough to the entire case. Chen Huifang has no appetite. When Ye Xiaoyan brought the steamed buns and soybean milk, they were still hot, but now they are cold. Nye Xiaoyan advised Chen Huifang for a while before stopping and going downstairs. There was still something to do in the team, and Deng Yufei was already arranging for everyone to conduct another survey of the entire villa, but he had not eaten breakfast yet. Chen Huifang took out the necklace pendant around her neck. The pendant, which looked like a pocket watch, was made of silver and was very delicate and small. She pressed the circular ring that the gold necklace passed through on the pendant, and it opened with a snap. The inside of the pendant is adorned with two photos, one of her with a little boy and the other with a little girl. That little girl is Guo Tianyi when she was 3 years old. At that time, Xiao Tianyi was lively and lovely. She learned many Tang poems and English words at a young age, and later became a special host for the children's channel of the provincial TV station. The TV station director even joked to Chen Huifang, "Tianyi is a naturally beautiful woman, Huifang, you must cultivate her well." The TV station has reserved a host position for her in 15 years. Later on, the sensible Guo Tianyi did not disappoint Chen Huifang. She became Chen Huifang's only hope during those dark days. From elementary school to junior high school, and even to high school, Guo Tianyi attended the best schools in the city and was also the person who studied the best in those schools. Later on, Guo Tianyi was admitted to the Taipei University in China and studied clinical medicine through a combination of undergraduate and graduate studies. It's just that my daughter has gone so far away, and being a mother always worries me. In the first 1 or 2 years, Guo Tianyi would call Chen Huifang 2 or 3 times a week to talk about her academic situation in college and ask about Chen Huifang's situation at home. "My daughter is always considerate." She told Chen Huifang not to worry about her tuition and living expenses, as her scholarship was already enough for her daily expenses. Moreover, the enthusiastic teacher also introduced her to participate in 2 key subject projects, where she would receive a monthly subsidy. Slowly, the time Guo Tianyi spent chatting on the phone became shorter and shorter. Chen Huifang knew she was very busy, so she often advised her not to worry about household chores and to focus on her studies at school. But Guo Tianyi still called his mother back regularly, asking for warmth and comfort, until last summer vacation. About a month before last summer vacation, Guo Tianyi fell ill, but she did not tell Chen Huifang. Guo Tianyi rarely fell ill from a young age. In Chen Huifang's memory, except for a spring outing with classmates in elementary school, Guo Tianyi slipped and fell into the water on a pedal boat. After catching a cold and fever for a week, she never fell ill again. It's strange to say that little Guo Tianyi is not afraid of getting injections. At that time, the doctor said that continuous infusion was needed for 5 days according to her condition, but he was worried that repeated injections would cause Guo Tianyi too much pain, so he suggested getting an indwelling needle. However, Guo Tianyi seemed to be not afraid of pain, saying that it was inconvenient to take the indwelling needle to school to study, and would rather get 1 injection every day. The doctor couldn't resist her, so she ended up getting injections every day. Every time she did, Chen Huifang looked beside her and felt heartbroken, but Guo Tianyi seemed to have nothing to do, smiling when she should, without any painful expression. This illness in college allowed Guo Tianyi to know some secrets about herself, which Chen Huifang did not know. Chapter 9. Does Chen Huifang have any premeditation? You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the conference room of the Criminal Investigation Brigade. Everyone has returned from the scene, with Chen Huifang and Nie Xiaoyan returning the latest. Chen Huifang has always been meticulous, and this time is no exception. His last evacuation from the scene was to hope not to miss any suspicious clues. Nie Xiaoyan is going to settle Chen Huifang. Chen Huifang has her own house in the north of the city, which was a second-hand small house she bought after receiving death compensation from Xinguoqing. It is less than 60 square meters of 2-bedroom apartment, although small, it is quite clean. It was in that environment that Guo Tianyi successfully got into the prestigious Yicheng University. The walls of the small room are covered with photos of 2 children, one is a little boy and the other is a little girl. The little girl has delicate eyebrows and eyes, while the little boy has thick eyebrows and big eyes. Nie Xiaoyan felt that the little girl's appearance had been seen somewhere before, but she couldn't tell. It wasn't until Chen Huifang weakly told her that this little girl was the female corpse she had just seen in Huamansang's villa that Nie Xiaoyan suddenly realized, but she also had new questions. Why did Chen Huifang's daughter die wearing a nightgown by Huamansang's bed? Nie Xiaoyan did not continue to inquire. She knew that Chen Huifang's emotions were unstable now, and delving deeper into this issue would definitely cause her natural psychological resistance. It would be better to ask again at another time. So she shifted the topic. Is this little boy your son? He's really cute, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. Unexpectedly, this question seemed to hit Chen Huifang's heart even more. She sighed lightly and didn't speak until Nie Xiaoyan thought she couldn't answer, and she started talking again. Yes, it's my biological son. Nie Xiaoyan found it strange to hear the word biological son, while Chen Huifang emphasized that the word biological should not be used for no reason. Yes, my biological son, Chen Huifang repeated, but I lost him. Another sad thing for Chen Huifang, Nie Xiaoyan didn't want to touch it, especially now that such a thing doesn't seem to have much to do with this case, so she doesn't want to continue asking. But now Nie Xiaoyan knows that Chen Huifang, a middle-aged woman who looks gentle and well-maintained, has experienced too many painful past experiences. Nie Xiaoyan told Chen Huifang that Huamansang's villa, as a crime scene, needs to be kept for a few days these days, so she doesn't need to go there to deal with it temporarily. She should calm down her emotions at home and wait for her follow-up notice. Of course, as a family member of the deceased, please make sure to cooperate with the police's next work. Chen Huifang didn't answer immediately, just nodded silently. After explaining Chen Huifang's matter, Nie Xiaoyan saw that it was almost 1:30 p.m. When Nie Xiaoyan entered the conference room of the Criminal Investigation Brigade, the meeting had already begun for a while. Now it was Bai Mubai speaking. When he saw Nie Xiaoyan come in, he waved to her and gestured for her to come forward. Xiaoyan, come over quickly and sit here, Bai Mubai pointed to a position between Deng Yufei and Lin Xiaoge. Strange, why did you ask me to sit here today? Nie Xiaoyan used to sit behind Lin Xiaoge, but she didn't understand why she moved to the front today. Xiaoyan, can you tell me the origin of this book? Bai Mubai picked up a Japanese book from the table, and Nie Xiaoyan recognized it as the book Ju Shou that Bai Dui took out in the villa compartment today. That is the pinnacle of Japanese sociological detective fiction, with a classic line that goes: "The self-pity of the talented is the elegy of a swan, and the collapse of the mediocre is the cry of a wild beast." The novel tells the story of an ordinary Japanese woman's corruption, continuous blackening, murder, insurance fraud, and the escape of a golden cicada. In a suspenseful twist, many innocent people die in vain due to this woman's selfish thoughts. Have you never read it, Bai Dui? I haven't read it either, Deng Yufei continued. Then why did this book appear in Huamansang's small compartment, and from the placement and bookmarks, it's obvious that someone has read it seriously. But I don't think this book will be something Huamansang himself is interested in and patient in reading. Yes, Deng's supplement is basically the same as my judgment. Now, it is necessary for us to sort out and investigate the interpersonal relationships around Huamansang in the past period of time. Of course, due to the complexity of Huamansang's own relationships, this work will be very heavy and difficult. Can you personally lead the team, Deng? Deng Yufei had no reason to object, and Bai Mubai was fully aware of his strengths, which was also the best arrangement made based on his own abilities. Xiaoyan, you have come into contact with Chen Huifang. What have you found in this person? After all, she is the only witness at the scene of this case and also the reporter, and it is very likely that she has other connections with the deceased. Bai Mubai then turned the topic to Nie Xiaoyan. Chen Huifang is a hard-working woman. Deng Yufei continued. But this conversation surprised Bai Mubai. In fact, he saw Deng Yufei talking to Chen Huifang at the scene, but he never expected that their friendship would go far beyond that. Deng team, did you already know Chen Huifang before? Yes, by DUI. She is a hard-working woman. 20 years ago, her husband lost his life in a fire. At that time, I was in the criminal police team's team for this case and had communicated with her several times. At that time, she was only in her 20s, and it didn't seem like much time had passed. About a year or two ago, she and her only son, who had died, got lost again. It was me who was handling this case at the time. So when I saw her at Huamansang Villa, I immediately recognized her and she also had an impression of me. So we had a brief conversation. Upon hearing Deng Yufei's words, Nye Xiaoyan immediately confirmed with the information that Chen Huifang had just revealed, and became interested in whether Chen Huifang's child had been found. Deng, did her child finally find her? She asked. The sea of people is vast, and it's not easy to talk about it. Besides, she was the police officer who reported her child's disappearance on the third day. We retrieved all the relevant surveillance video materials in the surrounding area, but we couldn't find any useful clues, so we have been shelving them until now. Deng Yufei said this, but instead, he had some heroic shortcomings, which also made Nye Xiaoyan a little disappointed. If the child couldn't be found, then next time we talk to Chen Huifang, there is another forbidden area to avoid. Nye Xiaoyan saw that Deng Yufei didn't continue, so she replied to Bai Mu Bai, by DUI, Chen Huifang's identity in this case is indeed special. In addition to the reporter and witness you just mentioned, she also has a special identity. She is not only the nanny of the male deceased's family, but also the mother of the female deceased. Mother. Bai Mubai judged from Chen Huifang's reaction when he saw Guotiani's body that there must be some kind of relationship between the two, but he had no idea that they were actually mother and daughter. Imagine how big Chen Huifang, as a mother, would be when her daughter lay on the bed of an older boss than him. However, from my observation, Chen Huifang probably didn't know her daughter would appear in this villa beforehand, let alone anticipate that her daughter would die in Huamansang's bedroom. Nye Xiaoyan carefully analyzed the information she read from Chen Huifang's eyes. She also made an instinctive reaction after seeing the body. Chapter 10. The Rich and Prosperous Old Man. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Based on the analysis of Xiao Gu, Siming, and several comrades just now, I think there are several key tasks that need to be carried out separately. Deng's team focuses on investigating the current social relations around Huamansang to see who may be involved in this matter. Siming must accelerate the inspection of the physical evidence materials that have been collected so far, especially the meticulous investigation of the bodies of the two deceased. In addition, the cigarette butts and cigarette boxes that I found by the lake also need to be tested for DNA and other materials. Xiao Gu, you can take 2 people to the villa crime scene again. Based on the situation we have summarized today, I always think there is something else that needs to be done. Hidden in the villa, you should carefully touch it again and also visit the surroundings of the villa. Don't miss any suspicious targets. Xiaoyan, you can continue to delve deeper along the line of Chen Huifang. You can communicate with Deng Dui more and see if you can find any connection with her situation over the past 20 years. By the way, you can also take that book and bookmark, especially that one. Judging from the handwriting, it should belong to a female character. You can see if you can smell out any information. Bai Mubai assigned his work in a simple and clear manner. Sniff, you really treat me like a hunting dog, even though I am indeed a dog, Nye Xiaoyan murmured softly below after hearing Bai Mubai's words. Lin Xiaoga next to her touched her with his elbow, and she looked up to realize that Bai Mubai had noticed her little movements, awkwardly lowering her head. This case is one of the few homicide cases that has occurred in our city in recent years, and one of them is 2 lives. I hope all of you here can take it seriously and act quickly to strive for a breakthrough as soon as possible. Bai Mubai's last sentence is more like a mobilization order. He knows that his team members will definitely pay extra attention, and he believes that this case can be breakthrough soon. However, the situation was far from as simple as Bai Mubai thought, because the next day another villa near Huanhu Road was found to be abnormal. The villa where the incident occurred is the second building on the left of Huamansang's house, which is also located by the lake. The owner is a retired couple from Hubei City. Before retirement, the two of them were teachers from a high school in Hubei City. A few years ago, their son who worked in the United States came back to buy them this villa to retire. It faces the lake, with fresh air and quiet comfort. The two of them quickly got used to the life here. Today, I heard that there was something wrong with Huamansang's house next door. The old man, who often practiced in the morning, remembered the unusual situation he had encountered near his home these past 2 mornings. So, he and his wife together conducted a big sweep around his villa. Unexpectedly, some problems were actually discovered during this sweeping. The old man found 2 strange cigarette butts and 2 soda cans on the second-floor balcony of his villa. The 2 square meters of floor tiles around the cigarette butts were cleaned clean, while other areas had varying degrees of water and stains. The elderly couple are on the first floor, and the second floor of the villa is reserved for their son's family. After buying this villa, the son's family has come back to live twice. After all, it is not convenient to bring the family back to China every time. Therefore, the elderly couple, who are not agile in their legs, also find it difficult to go up to the second floor. If it weren't for Huamansang's incident, the elderly couple would probably have to wait until their son returns home next time to clean up the second floor. Because the time and space of the 2 cases are quite close, Bai Mubai decided to handle them together. He immediately called Lin Xiaoge, who was conducting a second investigation at the scene of the 1218 case. Now the malignant murder case at Huamansang Villa has been named as the 1218 case based on the time of its occurrence, and asked him to take the time to visit the neighboring villa. Perhaps the new clues that appeared there could provide some help in solving the 1218 case. Lin Xiaoge was about to report some newly discovered situation to Bai Mubai, but he didn't expect Bai Mubai to call first. After Bai Mubai finished arranging his work, he said to Bai Mubai, "Bai team, I found a series of fresh footprints on the lawn around the 1218 case site, which should have been left before and after the time of the incident. I have taken photos and simply measured the size of the footprints. They are the same size as the strange footprints next to Huamansang on the negative second floor, all in size 43. That is to say, the person who left footprints on the lawn outside and one of the suspects who entered the scene of the 1218 crime are the same person. By the way, is this set of footprints you found not far from the storage room window on the basement floor?" "That's right. How did you know about the white team?" Lin Xiaoge didn't expect Bai Mubai to accurately reveal the location of his footprints. He was very surprised and couldn't help but admire his team leader from the bottom of his heart. "Because when I was at the scene, I went to the storage room on the basement floor and suspected that the suspect had entered the crime scene through a window. Just now, when you said this, I connected the two. Please pay attention to the surroundings and search carefully. Maybe you can also find some useful clues, such as clothing fibers." "Got it," Lin Xiaoge said. At this moment, he really wanted to go to the villa next door to take a look. With just a little encouragement from the white team, he became more and more convinced that the things hidden there must be very valuable. The house numbers of the villas around the lake are very interesting. The row next to the lake starts with the letter F, and when walking inward, they are G, J, X, K, T, P, and D. It is said that they correspond to the 8 characters, wealth and auspiciousness, and pioneering the world, respectively. Each sequence has more than 100 numbers. Huamansang's villa is the 33rd one to enter from the 4th ring road ramp, so the house number is F033, and the old couple's building is F031. This villa has the same pattern as that of Huamansang. It has 5 floors in total, 3 floors above the ground and 2 floors below the ground. The main staircase leading to the upstairs and downstairs is next to the living room on the first floor. This time, the cigarette butts are found on the second floor. The decoration style of this villa is completely different from Huamansang's. It is completely Chinese style. The furniture in the room is also all in Chinese style. Upon entering, a mahogany screen is placed facing you, inlaid with a piece of marble. The marble is a relief of Su Beihong's 8 Steeds painting. My son customized it for someone when he returned to China last time, and because my surname was Ma, he gave me 8 horses at once. The old man said with a proud smile on his lips. The living room was filled with a faint wooden fragrance, which should have emanated from a set of purple-black small-leaf purple sandalwood sofas placed in the center of the living room. Lin Xiaoga thought that the market price of this sofa alone would be almost millions. Behind the sofa, there is a framed inscription on a humble house that reads, "There are great scholars in conversation and laughter, but no white scholars in communication. You can tune the qin, read the golden scriptures. There is no chaos of silk and bamboo, no laborious form of documents." Although these words by Lu Yushi fit the situation well, they are somewhat ironic. The old man said that this was a Ming Dynasty version of Zhu Zhishan that he had copied himself, and he thought it was a masterpiece, so he hung it in the living room. The old man didn't chat too much with Lin Xiaoga afterwards. From the perfunctory expression of the police officer in front of him when he introduced his work, he could see that continuing to discuss with this guy was a waste of saliva. So he remained silent and took Lin Xiaoga straight to the second floor.